Today we're going to do the final step before bottling. And when I use the fast ferment, one thing I found out early on is if I did not do this step, there'd be a lot of debris in my bottles of wine, which is not cool. So what we're ideally going to do right now is stir up what's in the fast ferment because there's sediment all along the sides that you don't really realize until it's too late when you start bottling the wine. So we're going to stir it up and let it settle into the collection ball. But what I like to do right now is I always put some kind of sweetening in my wine, even to bring it to a dry level. Now, it's already dry. It's as dry as it can be, which I would consider like an extra dry. But dry, from what I have been told, is from 0 up to 1.5. And then semi-sweet is from 1.5 up to 3. And sweet is everything from 3 and above. So I like my dries to be 0 because I don't like bone dry, suck the moisture out of my mouth dry. But this makes a really nice dry. And what I do is I back sweeten with honey. It's a local raw honey. I mean, you probably read and they tell you not to use raw honey, but to use pasteurized or filtered raw honey or something. But I'm not concerned about it because whatever I see floating in that wine, I know is from the honey, and it doesn't really concern me because I eat the raw honey anyhow. It's not a concern of mine. So you can do what you want, but this is what I do. So what I do is I will start with 3/4 of a cup of sweetener, whether it's sugar, honey, raw honey, or whatever you're going to use, and stir it in. You know, start low if anything, but that's for 6 gallons. So I want to close my collection ball so I don't stir anything up that's already in there. And then I will add the honey and stir it for 3 minutes, and I will take a reading to see where I'm at. But what you want to do first is you want to take an initial reading so that when you get to the reading after the first dose of sweetener, you can see how far it's gone and how far it has to go and do some math and figure it out. So I'll get the honey ready, and then we'll take it from there. So what I'm going to do first is I have my test tube, and I'm going to get my wine thief and fill that with wine, and then see what my initial reading is, and we're going to go from there. Everything is clean and sanitized, including my hands. You got to make sure you do that. That's of the utmost importance when you do this. The other thing you're checking too is how clear your wine is. You know, you can put it in this wine thief and look and see just how clear it looks, or you can transfer it to the test tube and look at it in there. And that's a little bit better because it doesn't drip like the wine thief does. And we're going to be, when you're sweetening or back sweetening the wine, you're going to be using the wine thief quite a bit, so you want to rinse it and sanitize it constantly. I'm going to get it rinsed off. And put it in the sanitizer. Wipe it down with sanitizing solution. I'm going to get my hydrometer. Oh, I have to pour some of that out. We got a little bit too much wine in there. Okay, that should be about right. We'll put that in and spin it as you drop it, because you don't want it to be on the side. Now that went on the side, so I have to try it again. Put it in the center and spread. Okay, that's better. And our initial reading is 0.990. Keep records. So start 0.990. All right, so what I do now, I'll take the triple scale hydrometer out, rinse it off real good, and stick it back in the sanitizer. Wipe it down, make sure it's totally covered. and pull out my mixing pan and rinse that off, which I know I don't do all the time, but if I'm doing back sweetening, it's going to come in contact with the honey. I want to keep it free from the sulfites if I can. And I got my camp stove. So what you got to do is when you're incorporating honey or sugar into the wine, you need to heat it up. And depending on what you're doing will determine how much you got to heat it. What I tend to do with sugar is I mix it in there till it just starts to boil, and then it's good. With the honey, I don't bring it so far because I don't want to destroy any of the character of the honey, which is why I don't use the processed honey. That's why I use the raw honey. I'm going to start with 3/4 of a cup, because depending upon what type of wine I'm doing will determine how much honey I will need. I'm going to pause because it's going to take a little bit to do this. Then I'll resume. Okay, so now I have the honey with the wine. I'm going to turn on the burner. And I'm going to heat it up, but never so hot I can't put my hand on the pan itself. I'd rather not have it above like 100 degrees maximum. And you got to just heat it enough to incorporate the honey into the wine. I'd like to be able to show you what this looks like, but it's kind of hard to show it on the video. But you got to constantly stir it. Right now I can see the honey mixed in with the wine itself. You can see a difference in the two. But when it gets to the point where that all is mixed in and you don't see any differential in it, that's when it's incorporated enough. And I also take it off and stick my hand on it and make sure it's not so hot I can't touch it. If it's starting to get too warm, it's just kind of on the warm side right now, I'll keep it off the burner, stir it around just to get it so it's not so hot, so it cools down. And turn the burner down a little bit. You don't need it up too high. It's just about where I want it anyhow. Okay, I think that's going to be good. And then I pour it in nice and easy. Trying not to incorporate any more air than is absolutely necessary. Try not to splash, just pour it nice and easy. Get that in there, this aside. And paddle. Look at the time. Put it on high speed, but stir it fast enough to mix it in, but not so fast that it splashes. So again, you don't want to get air in there. And do this for 3 minutes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pause so you don't have to watch all this. Okay, so we've got about 3 minutes now. So I'll take the paddle out, rinse that off. Stick that back in the sanitizer. Get the drill off it so it doesn't fall out. And then we will take another reading and see where we're at. Now if there's foam, that's okay, that's normal because you're mixing something in there. So now we need the wine thief again. I won't fill it up as high this time, although the hydrometer should go up a lot higher than it did before. well, maybe not a lot higher, but it's definitely not going to go down as far into the wine as it did the first time. Rinse off. And I rinse all this with hot water, just straight hot water. The stuff's all clean and sanitized. Anyhow, chances of germs getting at it while you're doing this are slim to nil. I've never had any issues, so I've been doing this a while. All right, now I'm probably going to pour a little bit out. That's a little high. It doesn't look too bad as far as clarity. There's a little bit of sediment in there, not a lot. That's the stuff that I stirred up off the side. And even if you're not going to back sweeten, if you're going to keep it at what your initial rating is, 990, whatever, then just stir it up, cap it, and put it away. Okay, now it's at 996. And I want to go 0. So I got 4 more points to go. So that means I got to put 2/3 of what I put in there. 3/4 of a cup, brought it up 3 lines, and I want to go 5. So that means I got to put half a cup. If you want to look at it the easy way, 3/4 of a cup, 3 lines. Each line is 2, so it's 2, 4, 6. So 3/4, 3 lines, that's a 1/4 cup per line. So for me to get to where I want to go next, I need to do another half a cup of honey. And that's going to bring me to where I want to be, which on the Brix scale is 1.000. On the Brix scale, it's 0. And that's what I'm looking for right now. So I will take this, put it in the pan. I don't rinse this out because I'm just reusing it. It's not going to make a difference. And then I'm going to get a half a cup of honey. So I'm going to pause the video again and do that. And then okay, I've got this honey all mixed in. Now, honey is important too. Make sure you like the flavor of the honey you use. Don't just use any run-of-the-mill honey, any real flowery taste, unless that's what you're looking for in your wine. Because it is going to add a taste. I go for a very light colored honey that doesn't have a whole lot of flavor. It's more sweet and flavorful. That's what I go with. It's like a light amber honey. I get from a local guy. He just fills our jars for us. It's really good stuff. Okay, so now I want to get my stirring paddle and get ready for another 3-minute stirring. So okay, so I got that all stirred in. This time I'll take the paddle off. Hopefully this will be the last stirring I have to do. The other good thing about doing your initial sweetening now is that any sediment that the sweetener that you're using adds to the wine will dissipate out of it, go right down into the collection ball. That's another reason I do this when I do it. Let's see where this sample comes. If my calculations are correct, it should be dead on. I hope they are. Sometimes it'll fool you. Just in case it does fool me, I'll have it ready sitting in the sanitizer. Hopefully it won't. It's gonna be kind of tough. There's, I don't know if you see them, but there's a little bit of bubbles in there. I mean, it still doesn't look too bad as far as clarity. I don't know if you can really see, but all right, let's see how it tests. I'm hoping for 1. Sometimes you got to do this a couple of times. It's 8. So I'm a little bit below where I really want to be. But I think it'll be close enough. But you know how you test? This is the part that a lot of us look forward to. This is where you get the sample. So I always have a little wine glass handy. And this is what I recommend too. And that way you know where you want to have your bricks set at, or your SG. So this is a little below dry, but it could be good enough. Let's see, how does it taste? So pour a little sample in there. It smells wonderful. That's very good. I think I'm going to go with that. I mean, we're really close. We'd be splitting hairs. I would hate to put too much in and make it too sweet. What I like to do with every wine, at least the first time I make it, is make some bottles sweet, some semi, and some dry. Now, this is a Pinot Noir, so typically it's a dry wine, so I'll make most of my bottles dry. But I'll also make some semi-sweet because I like semi-sweet. I'll make some dry. So we'll see how that goes, but now we'll just sanitize the top, put it back on, and put it away. We are at the point where I'm ready to put it back in storage for at least another week so that all that I've stirred up can settle into that collection ball. 1, maybe 2 weeks is about all you need. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit longer than what the instructions call for, but it's worth it in the end. It's better to go a little longer than shorter. Now the other thing you can do, you got a pH meter or test strips, you can check your pH, and that's always a good thing to do, to see where you're at. 3.5. That's a good place to be. So my pH is 3.5. You don't want it too high or too low. I think what the settings are you're looking for between maybe 3.2 to 3.8 for reds. For whites you might go a little bit higher, which would be less acidic. But with the reds, that's very good. The main thing you want to do too is when you're done with these steps is open that collection ball before you put it away, so that all the sediment goes in there and not into your bottles. So I wanted to mention is at this point you better make sure you have, I would say, at least 32 to 34 bottles ready to put your wine in when you go to bottle. If you don't have them yet, you better get them. If you're using used bottles especially, because you want to have them nice and clean before you start, and then we'll sanitize them right before we fill them. So gather your bottles if you haven't already. I know what you're thinking. Now what did he forget? There was one more thing I wanted to address before the next video I make. Is with bottling from the fast ferment, they give you a connection for the bottom of the fast ferment with a nipple on it that fits, I think it's 7/16 or a 1/2 inch hose, and the bottle filler that I use is a 3/8 inch, and that gives you an accurate displacement when you put it in to fill the bottles. So you fill the bottle up to the brim, pull it out, and it gives a perfect displacement for airspace in each bottle. The bigger one, however, gives you too much airspace in my opinion. So what I did is I went to the hardware store. Being a contractor, I know how to do these things. And I got a reducing coupling that goes into the bottom of the unit that comes with the fast ferment. And then I bought a smaller nipple that fits 3/8 inch clear plastic tubing. You want to make sure you get food grade. And you don't need a real lot. 2 or 3 feet would probably be enough for the fast run. Get 3 feet just to be safe. And then the tubing fits on the bottom of that barbed fitting, which I'm not going to do because it's hard to get off, and then over the end of the bottle filler. And the bottle filler, as you can see, has a little end that depresses. It's spring loaded, so when the wine's in there, it does not come out until you depress it on the bottom of the bottle, and then it starts filling. Then when you release, it stops. It's a great thing to use rather than try to hit and miss. Just run it in the bottle, hope you stop it in time. That's my recommendation, what I would do.